Hey everybody, this is Mr. Parks,
And Profe Lit.
and we want to walk through a little bit of the proposal to make sure that you guys are clear on what will make the best possible senior project that you can do.
And ensure that your proposal gets approved when you turn it in, right? We don't want you to waste time um, adding detail where you don't, or maybe feel like you're finished and then be asked to continue revising. So we're trying to help make this process efficient.
And so remember, March 9th is the final day when your first proposals are due, and we want to make sure that they are thorough, that they are clear, and yet at the same time that they are concise. And so remember in Google Classroom, you guys can check out, you'll see this document, and the nice thing is they're all student specific, so you don't have to like make a whole new document. You can just start typing whenever you open it up here. So in this first section, please, of course, just write your name and then come up with a title of your project. The title is really helpful because it's going to help you brand what you're doing. It's going to help you prepare the proper language to use to describe it, and then finally to present it here in when we get to May, when it's time to present what you guys have done. So these first two are pretty basic, and this first whole section is really straightforward. And then highlight or circle on your Google Doc one of the six criteria that you're using here. If you're using more than one, just highlight those two, and then you'll have some time to elaborate upon those a little bit later on.
Okay, and so moving into section 2, this is really about your motivation, and we really want you to discuss like what motivates you to want to do this specific project. And so the first question we ask you is, what is your project idea? It's important that you be really concise here. Again, this should probably be about 5 to 7 sentences, no more, yet also informative, right? Avoid vague language and generalities, and probably avoid language like, I want to do this, right? We want you to speak with a little bit more purpose and a little bit more confidence, saying things like, I will execute this with said program. Specificity is really, really important here. Avoid broad language. Also, the next question we want you to answer how and why this project specifically interests you. It's important for the senior project committee to understand when reviewing your proposal, your motivation. This is going to show your ability and willingness to work independently on something, and really just inspire confidence in the committee to give you approval on your project.
And so then the final thing on that first page is just what's the overall goal of your project? If you need to have some directionality as to what you are going to do, but also the impact that you're going to make and what you hope to get out of that. So this first section, this first page, I think is pretty important. Like Profe just said, be as concise but also as clear and as like logistically plausible as absolutely possible. And then this following box on the next page, how do you plan to achieve that goal? So these two are deeply related. What is the overall goal? And then here, we want you to draw out a specific plan. And again, if you can be as clear and as forward thinking as possible, if you complete this section really thoroughly, then you are more ensured to actually achieve the goal that you set out to achieve.
The next two projects are really to help you with time management and keeping your project goal oriented. So this box here that's asking you to plan how you plan to spend your time almost could look like a time card, right? Or a time budget, right? So you've got almost 2 full weeks plus the weeks of kind of preparation work. And we really want you to hold yourself accountable to what you're going to do with that time. So really a lot, like hours up to minutes. Like I'm going to spend 15 minutes working on email correspondence with my organization. I'm going to spend an hour lesson planning for the soccer workshops I'm going to be putting on, but really sort of break it down to the minute, to the hour on how you're going to account for the sort of requirement of time that your senior project should take place. And then finally, remind yourself what that product will be upon completion of your senior project. Note that this is not necessarily a tangible thing. For some of you, if you're constructing something or building something, that might be your final project. But those of you who are completing service-oriented projects or experiments, your product might not be a physical thing. So be mindful and note what you hope your goal to be and what that final product is going to look like of a successfully completed senior project.
So I think that section 3 is probably one of the most important sections. The other ones we're setting the philosophy, we're being goal oriented, we're planning everything. But here is where we need to start bringing some clarity to how we are going to work with an outside sponsor. This is an awesome opportunity to get some real world experience, to learn a lot, but also to learn a lot from other people who have gone before you and who are already doing similar things. And so these couple questions, be very specific here. With whom could you connect your work and network for this project? Do you need help identifying a sponsor for external to All Saints? If you need help, please reach out to your advisor, to Profe or myself, to maybe you want to do something in the research of science. Well, go talk to Ms. Stripe or go talk to Ms. Trammell. Use the resources here to help you make a contact and build relationships with people outside of All Saints.
As Mr. Park said, senior project is this awesome opportunity to take your learning beyond the walls of All Saints, and connecting you with an outside sponsor is one way that we kind of want to help you support doing this. Take your art endeavors beyond the art classroom, and find a local artist or a local gallery that would offer insight into your work or offer feedback about how do you put on a show. But again, take your learning to the real world and see what happens. I think you guys are going to be excited.
Yeah, so have you made contact with the outside sponsor? By March 9th, the answer to that should likely be yes. Okay, by March 9th, the answer to that question should likely be yes. And I've already helped some students make contact with people outside of All Saints, send emails, and try to set up phone conversations. So if we can help, if your advisor can help, if teachers can help, the answer to this question needs to be yes in the next couple of weeks. Now, this next box is really helpful for Profe and for myself, for those of us that are trying to ensure that you guys have a very successful endeavor in your senior project. Please give us the website of the organization that you're working with, the name of the contact, and then maybe a person within the organization. As much as you can provide us here, the better. This is a really good opportunity for us to speak well about our school, to be good liaisons between All Saints and then the community. But then also this allows us, from kind of an administrative perspective, to reach out and to thank these people for working with you, and to allow them to kind of get a little bit more knowledge of what we are planning to do here at the school. So then finally, how do you know your sponsor? Is this somebody that you reached out to via email? Is it your uncle's best friend? Is it your friend's parent? Whomever it is, please tell us the relationship and how you might know this sponsor.
Section 4 is all about feedback and reflection. And again, this is putting some pieces in place that will kind of hold you accountable throughout your senior project. And you guys know this. You know that, a paper upon the first draft without that feedback from a teacher is not as strong as the final paper when you've kind of actively sought feedback from your teacher, revised and improved your writing. And the same is going to be true of your senior project. So how will you build room and sort of like stopping points within your project to seek feedback along the way, right? It's really important, for your time management and for sort of quality control, that you don't wait to the last minute to seek feedback. Seek feedback often, right? And use that feedback to continue honing your project. And then how are you going to self-reflect during your project? How will you document your work and reflect on the learning and growing that you're going to do? This can take the shape of many different ways. Like there's the obvious, a journal of some sorts that you're going to kind of reflect and document at the conclusion of each day during your senior project weeks. It could also be a vlog diary of sorts. You could do kind of Big Brother videos and record yourself and reflect on what you've been doing. It could be a blog online that you're kind of sending out your reflections into the world. There's a lot of different ways that your sort of reflection diary can take shape, and we just want to know the kind of format that you are kind of choosing and that works well with your style.
So these last two questions, I think, are boxes are really important. What does success look like for your particular project? This is going to be different for all of you. But how will you know that you completed a successful project? Or think of this in a different way. How in a couple of years, when you look back on your senior project, can you ensure that this is some work that you are going to be proud of doing? So what does this look like? Be visionary here, but also be very concrete in how you're going to talk about what success means for you. And then finally here, how does what you're doing align with the mission and outcome of our school? By now you guys are on the verge of graduation. You possess skills that we have hopefully imbued in you, and at the same time, how is your work going to go out into the world and allow you to exercise your own genius through developing a relationship with God by engaging the world and by serving others? So be as specific here as you can.
Section 5 is really about resources and roadblocks. The first box is asking you to really sort of make a laundry list of the equipment, the manpower, the facilities, the community resources that you might need in order to execute your project. Again, this is sort of a preparation phase. So that in the 2 weeks of senior project, you're just executing, right? You're not spending a lot of time trying to find the right equipment and materials and things like that. You're ready to start kind of putting your project into action. And then the next box is about possible roadblocks and barriers. We think it's really important that you kind of name those already. Like, it's okay that you kind of take a cautionary approach to your senior project, right? This might be the first time that you're kind of spearheading an initiative like this. And in taking the time to sort of problem solve ahead of time and to name the roadblocks that are kind of already in your head that you anticipate might be an issue, it's going to help you to kind of proactively deal with those roadblocks rather than kind of hit a dead end in your project. If you're thinking about what might be a possible sort of challenge, you might actually account for that in your planning purposes.
So then the last two here, then think a little bit about what your presentation will look like. You are going to be presenting your work in front of a panel of faculty and administration. So think about how you're going to showcase your work, the growth that you experienced over these couple weeks, the impact that you made, the lessons that you learned, the research that you discovered. How are you going to present that? And then finally, what are the things that you need to consider that will allow you to have like the best possible outcome of your senior project? Here is just kind of like leftover stuff. If there are some questions, if there are some concerns that you have, or if there are some ideas, go ahead and put them there.
And I want to piggyback on what Mr. Parks was saying about the presentation. Like, think about that as you're designing your reflection mode. What kind of documentation of the process do you need to include in order to present the best showcase of your work? And then also be mindful that those presentations happen in the weeks between May 7th and May 18th, and kind of think about time management in order to be ready to showcase your work during those weeks.
So in full, this is a really cool opportunity for you guys to go out into our community, to apply real world learning, to pursue interests that exist outside of this campus. But in order to make that a successful journey, we think it starts here by being thoughtful and by being very organized in how we are going to approach a senior project. That it's going to be anywhere between 30 and maybe 90 hours of you doing something. And so by being a good steward of what we're doing here on this, it's going to allow you to be and to experience a much more successful and impactful senior project in May.
Mr. Parks and I are super excited to read your proposals. We know you guys are going to come up with some awesome ideas and some really creative projects, and we just can't wait to see and read about them.